Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing an art supply haul, so I've got a few things I want to show you. There's a few things that I've been gifted, some new bits that I want to try out, and I'm also restocking some of my favourite supplies. So my Neocolors and my coloured pencils do wear down quite quickly, so I often need to refresh them. So I thought I'd show you my restock today, as well as a few new sketchbooks and a really lovely book I want to share. So let's get straight into it. So I'm going to start off with our larger items, and these are two sketchbooks that I want to try out. This largest one, this is a 30 by 30 centimeter Clairefontaine sketchbook. Now I do have the smaller 20 by 20 centimeter one. I didn't quite realise how much bigger it would feel, so if I open this up you can see the space on this page is huge to work on. And this is their mixed media sketchbook, so like I said, I do have their other one. The last one had a sticker in, which this one doesn't have a sticker on, so I'll leave the details on the screen. But I really like these sketchbooks. I've used mixed media in the smaller version, so I know it holds a lot of wet media really well. It does have a slight tooth to it, so sometimes with coloured pencils they're not a super smooth line. And the other thing that I'd mention about these sketchbooks is how one side is going to be completely smooth, and then the other side does have that texture. So it's not completely the same throughout. It depends on which side of the paper stock you're working. So I can see this one does have a slight texture. It's not cold pressed, so it's not that rough, but there's definitely a grain to it. But then on the other side it's completely smooth. So I don't find an issue with that. I don't mind it at all, but it's something to think about. I just really like the whiteness of this paper. Like I said, I will put the GSM of the paper on screen as well, but I really like these, and I'm going to be using this for a project I'm working on. And then I also picked up this one again for the same project. This is a Stillman & Byrne Zeta series premium sketchbook. Now I've heard really lovely things about the Stillman & Byrne sketchbook, so I thought I'd try this out. This is their 8 by 10 inch one. They do have quite a few in their series, so I think they're different paper stocks and they're different sizes. But what I didn't realise until I got this was this is also in the Clairefontaine family. So this is part of the same sketchbook collection that the other one was, but this one is Stillman & Byrne. It's made in the USA, so I wasn't sure how easily it was to get available, because like with the Strathmore, I do struggle with the soft covers. But this was stocked on Jackson's and they had quite a few different ones. I know they definitely had the Nova. So I'm really excited to try this out. The paper stock is extremely smooth, way smoother than all my other paper I'd say, and it's also super thick. So the GSM of this one is 270, so this is the thickest sketchbook I have, and I'm really going to put it through its paces. You can really hear that it's like card when I am turning the page, but I feel like this will take a lot of media that I throw at it. Again, I really like the whiteness, and I like that it lays flat. So I feel like this is going to be a really nice one to fill, and there are 26 sheets, so I guess that's 52 pages. So I feel like that's a good amount, and there's quite a lot in here, so I think that this is going to be a really good one for me to test out. You'll know that I am testing out quite a few sketchbooks at the moment. I'm still trying to find which one I prefer. I don't have one and done. Like, I do use my Royal Talons quite a lot, but if I'm using watercolour, I'll go for my Strathmore, maybe I'll go for this one. It just depends on the medium that I'm going to be using, so I'm not just sticking to one sketchbook. Same with size, I prefer to have lots of different ones. That's why I bought the Piss sketchbook that I did a review of last week, because I feel a bit hemmed in if I'm just in one sketchbook. I'd much rather have a few, and I can grab the ones that I want to create in. So whilst we're on the subject of books, I also want to mention this art book. Now I do have quite a lot of art books, I love collecting them. I don't share them many on my channel, but I did want to share this one because I bought this recently. So this is Eric Revilia's Scrapbooks by Peyton Skipwith and Brian Webb. I got this on a recommendation from Lucia Layfield. I took her recent workshop about artist scrapbooks and sketchbooks, and I was so inspired, and she referenced this book, and I saw it was on sale on Amazon, so I'll leave a link to the listing where I bought it, but I thought it was a good price. So it was £23 for this really chunky hardback. I'm just going to do a quick flip and show you some of the examples inside, but I feel like I'm going to get loads of inspiration from here. If you've seen on my channel before, you know I love scrapbooking and creating journals and like commonplace journaling of collecting little bits and keeping them in one place. And then also I'm an artist, so it feels like two worlds colliding almost, of scrapbooking and then sort of maybe putting it into my artwork or combining them possibly. I'm not really sure, but I just know that it's a spark of inspiration that I do want to follow. So a huge thank you to Lucia for recommending this book. I just think it's gorgeous. There's so many things in here that I feel like you can take lots of different inspiration from. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. I love seeing like typography and sketches. It's just really interesting to see where people take their inspiration from. So I did want to mention that, like I said, it's not often that I share art books on my channel, but I thought this one was gorgeous and hopefully you think so too. Next up, I'm going to share these two from Etcher Lab. Now, these were sent to me, so they are kindly gifted. I want to make that clear. I've put an ad up in the corner so that you know. But I'm not being paid to mention them. They just sent these to me for free. So the first up is a set of postcards. So I don't think I have the information on here, but these are 220 hot press paper. They have got the postcard like details on the back. I have to say they feel a lot thinner than I thought. So these are supposed to be 220 hot press. I think because they're hot press they feel a bit thinner, but I'll be really interested to see just how much mixed media they can take, because I feel like these would make really nice little thank you notes. If I ever do sell an original in my Etsy shop, then I could do a personalized little note and drawing on here and then send that in their order. So I thought that was really nice. And I'm keen to see just how much media this can hold, because like I said, it is quite thin, but it's 100% cotton. I like the colour of it, and there's plenty in here. They're also quite neatly stored away in this little box. And then the other thing that they kindly sent me are these brushes. So this is their gouache brush set, and they come in this lovely case. There's a few little spare holes that I can put in, so I feel like this will be really good for plein air. I don't have to just put my brushes in here. I'll put some brushes, some pencils, and maybe some markers, so I feel like this will be really handy to take out and about with me. And then there are 8 brushes in here. So I really like the design on them. They're very simple, very nice and smart looking. I believe that they're synthetic, and there's different sizes here. So that's the largest. I'll probably get the most use out of this one because that's the round brush, and that's a size 12. And then I've got some other flat-headed brushes. So we've got a size 12, a size 6, 4, and a 2 in this shape. Oh, they're all slightly different actually. So these ones are really good for details. I think these will be really fun to play around with. They're a bit smaller than I normally go for, but I think they'll be good for if I add on any details. These ones are, again, are round brushes, so I feel like I'll be able to get a lot of use out of those. So big thank you to Etcher for sending these. Like I said, they didn't pay me or tell me to mention them, but I just wanted to include them in this haul. Next up is something I'm really excited about. So this is a Magello artist watercolor palette. I saw this on Artie's video, so I'll leave a link to Artie's recent haul down below because that's where I got inspired by this one. I've also seen a couple of other artists use it, but Artie, it was you that tipped me over the edge to get it. So let's take it out of the packaging. So this is a watercolor palette, but I'm planning on putting gouache in here. So there's plenty of space here. This is the 18 hole palette. I know that there's also a 24 palette option, but for me this is going to be plenty. I don't think I'll even fill all of the wells, but I'm really looking forward to using this for my plein air painting. When I have used gouache outside before, I've taken my tubes, put them on my palette, and then had to try and let it dry before I put it back in my bag. Whereas with this, I'll be able to put them down here because they are able to be reactivated with water. This is supposed to be airtight, so a really nice seal around the edge, so that'll be a good thing to test out. And then I'll just be able to use this as if it's like a watercolor palette, but with gouache. There's plenty of space for me to mix my colours, so I think it will be super helpful, and I do want to do more drawing and painting outside this spring and summer this year, so I feel like this is going to be a game changer for my work. I'm really excited, so I'm going to do a whole video about that. So coming up, there'll be a video filling this palette with my gouache colours and then also going outside and using it. So keep your eyes out for that one, but I'm really excited for this one. I do think I'll be using it a lot because I've been using my Kuretake Gensai Tambi watercolour set, but I don't like how long it takes to dry. So as much as I'd like to take that outside with me, I think I want to work quicker. So for me, gouache dries a lot faster in my sketchbook, so I think this will get a lot of use. Okay, and then last up are the smaller bits for my Jackson's order, so the bits that I'm restocking from my favourite art supplies, and also a couple of new shades. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, I use a lot of these colours already. So a lot of my very well loved coloured pencils and Neocolours look like this, and so I like to obviously buy new ones when they're getting shorter. I do have a whole pot of these dark indigos that are like tiny sizes, but I bought a new one before Christmas, so I'm okay for dark indigo, but I did think that I would top up on my other ones before they get hard to use. So we'll start with luminance. These three are the ones that I have used the most. So we've got the light cobalt blue 661, the olive yellow 015, and then also the ultramarine 140. This is quite a recent love of mine, this ultramarine, but I found that it's really lovely for adding a really nice pop of colour. And then these two are, I think I included them in my ultimate art supply favourites that I filmed last year, but these are just super handy, obviously for landscapes, for the sky, and then for grassy fields. Obviously I'm not replacing all of my coloured pencils, I like to do it in stages, but I was making quite a large order, so that's why I wanted to share it on YouTube. And then whenever I do buy new art supplies, especially as I'm building up my luminance collection, I like to add in a colour or two that I haven't bought before. So for this one this time, it was this one, which is a lovely warm yellow. It's kind of like an ochre. So this is Raw Sienna FSC, it's 036. So I'm going to swatch all of these. Also going to use all of these supplies, or only these supplies, in a drawing with you today. So that will be coming after this little haul section, so you can see them in use and the actual colours that they are. I also bought two new Derwent drawing pencils. The Chinese white is the one that I'm raving about all of the time. This is my absolute favourite white pencil. It goes over so many different mediums, and the one I'm using is getting much smaller, so I really wanted to replace that one. And then, like I said, I'm building up my collection slowly, so when I do replace them, I also like to buy a new shade. And this one is Crag Green 5090. Really nice, like neutral grey green, so I'm excited to try that out because that's one I haven't tried before. Now, acrylic marker wise, I'm not generally buying new acrylic markers, but I was recommended this one, who told me it was very similar to the Neocolor shade that I absolutely love, which is this one. So it's called Sky Blue in English, it's Blue Lavande in French. I definitely think Blue Lavender is more accurate, but they mentioned that this is a very good dupe for this, so I thought that it would be really good to get it in the marker form. So this is the Molotow one for all acrylic marker. Sadly, they don't do this shade in the bigger size, which is what I prefer to use generally with acrylic markers. But this will still be really good to be able to smudge and also for pops of colour at the end. The colour of this one is Blue Violet Pastel. It's 209. So I'm looking forward to testing that one out. And then some Neocolours. Now, when I took these out of the box just then, I thought that I'd made a mistake and bought two of the same, but luckily I haven't. So let's talk about the ones that I'm replacing first. Now, these are all replacements for these little nubs here. And interestingly, like, they do look different because obviously these have got really grubby in my tin, so the packaging looks a lot neater. But we have got the light grey, the salmon, and the lemon yellow. I use these all the time. I use these more than the light grey, but my light grey was getting very well loved. This is really good for skies. And then these two are good for just highlighting things, and in my landscapes I really enjoy using them against the greens. The other one that is one of my favourite colours is the light olive, but as you can see I bought a new one of these last year, so I didn't need to restock that. But as a whole I really like these. I also really love, as I'm talking about my favourites, the light cobalt blue hue, but interestingly I couldn't find this colour on Jackson's. So it'll be probably half a year before I need to buy this one and it gets too small. But I would say these ones are definitely handy colours to have if you are a landscape artist. So those are the 4 that I'm replacing, and then again I like to top up my collection, and this is an apricot. So let me compare it to the salmon. It's definitely more orange, so you can see the salmon pink at the top and then the apricot below. I'm looking forward to swatching these and seeing how they compare, but I haven't got this colour in my box, so I'm excited to try that one out. And like I said, I am going to draw a little landscape using just these colours. So I'm actually not going to use anything as a base. I usually use gouache or watercolour for my base, but I'm just going to use these Neocolors. I am going to include this light olive Neocolor too, so that I can water that down and include it in my landscape. But other than that, these are the only colours that I'm going to be using for today's artwork. So I hope you enjoy watching. Hope you enjoyed that little haul and enjoy the process coming up. So I'm not using any of the sketchbooks I showed you because, like I said, they are for other projects. So I'm just doing this in my 13 by 21 centimeter Royal Talon sketchbook. And I'm beginning by swatching the art supplies I've just showed you on the left. So we've got the ultramarine luminance, the raw sienna, the light cobalt blue, and then also the olive yellow. And I just wanted to show you the colours, so that's why I'm popping them here on the top left before filling the rest of my spread with a landscape. So here's the crag green and the Chinese white. The green was definitely more neutral than I thought. It wasn't very green toned. It's definitely more like a neutral sort of grey tone. But I'm really happy with the Molitor. I think that's a really nice bluey violet shade. And then the Neocolor 2s that I got, so the light grey, the lemon yellow, the salmon pink and the apricot, and you can see here the difference. So the apricot's definitely more orange and they're both really bright, so I think they're really good for pops of colour in a landscape. I'm just adding in a kind of border, so I like working in panels, so I just used the ultramarine to draw around it. I didn't want to close off the top, so I left that open, and then I'm coming in with my Neocolors. So because I don't have any wet medium, I'm not using paint, I'm using the Neocolors, and then I can water that down because they are Neocolor 2s and they're water soluble. So I'm going to use some of the etcher brushes, which you'll see me come in with later, just to add some water and soften this out. I'm also using the raw sienna. So like I said, I want to use all of the colours that I've just shown you and I've got in this haul. So I picked a landscape that has a little like castle or manor in the background, and then lots of nice greenery in the foreground, and then there's a lake in the middle. So I thought that would be a really good landscape to showcase all my colours, use like the blues and the greys as well as all the greens and my favourite colours that I needed restocking. So I'm just building up the layers. Like I said, I am just using the tones I've got, so I'm starting with it all dry. That kind of helps me to lay out all the different elements, and then I will come in and add more details, more texture, and add in the water as well. Here's the light grey, so I do like using this for clouds, and also it's really helpful for water. I don't often use just like a solid blue for water because it looks a bit unnatural, so that's why I like using this grey tone for a more realistic tone in lakes. In the sky, I'm using the light cobalt blue coloured pencil. I am using it sort of on its side, but if I want to be a bit more refined with my detail, and like when I do the cloud shapes, then I do use it as like a proper pencil and hold it a bit better. But having those two different ways to hold the pencil really helps me to create different textures. So here I am coming in with the water, and that just softens the tone a little bit. So I just did that on the edge of the lake. And then here in this corner, I wanted to fill that in. Usually I would use gouache, but I'm mixing in the lemon yellow and the light olive Neocolor, and then just wetting it with water. And because I applied the Neocolor a lot thicker in this area compared to like the lines on the water, you'll see that it creates a much thicker sort of, almost like it is creating paint. And I do find that the Neocolor 2s activate really well with the water, so it really gets rid of those initial marks, you know, that I find with the Faber-Castell gelatos. It's the original marks that I don't like that you can see underneath, whereas I don't get that with the Neocolors. So it creates a really nice, thick sort of opaque paint. And I'm just coming in with, again, some of my pencils to add in some more details. I'm also using the ultramarine for the windows and just adding those to the back. I also wanted to use the apricot somewhere, So I'm just defining some of these lines, and I really like just adding this pop in around some of the elements in my landscape. So I just added it onto the house back there. And then again, I'm using that salmon pink for pops of colour. So I'm adding in some flowers. These weren't in the reference that I was using, which is a photo that my mum took, but I wanted to add in some more colour against that green. And then over on the left, I'm adding in the Molotow, so the blue-violet pastel. And again, this is just a really nice colour. I really like the way that it goes down. If I wanted to smudge it, then I could, but I actually preferred it when I didn't. I'm just creating some sort of organic shapes with it and tying that colour because I liked it over on the left, so I wanted to tie it in with the right. Then I want it to be a little bit less wishy-washy, so I'm coming in with my darker tone of the ultramarine here just to add in some shadows on that sort of back riverbank and adding some more colour into the water as well. I like to balance the colours around the page, so that's why I'm adding in the salmon pink over here as well, and just going in over the top where I've put my base colours now and like my main shapes, and just trying to add in a bit more texture and a bit more interest. I just want to cover in a bit more of the white because the water is quite blank, so I really want to create this sort of border around it that's really full of colour. I also wanted to add in these sweet little ducks, so this wasn't in the original photo, but I feel like it needed some sort of focal point here on the left, so I just add these into the water and just try to make them a little bit darker so there's more contrast. Now, one of the things I feel like this piece was missing was a really dark tone. So I am coming in with another pencil. This wasn't in the haul, but I do feel like this piece really needed a darker tone that I could add into, especially this foreground area. So this is the Thylacine green, and I think it was much better when I added this. Overall, I don't love this piece, but it's really helpful for me to try and use my materials in a different way. And I like this colour combination. I think it's really helpful to use these in this way. But I think having this darker tone really helped just to add in that extra texture. So I use that for like grass blades in the front, and I like it a lot more because I had that dark tone. So I'm glad I added that in. The ultramarine was the darkest tone I had, but I feel like it wasn't dark enough. It was kind of like a mid-tone. So just having that extra pencil really helped finish this off nicely. And there we go, there's the final piece with my swatches up on the left. It's not my most favourite piece of art I've ever done, but like I said, it was enjoyable and I did learn a few things with my materials. A huge thank you to my patrons for their support in allowing me to create this free content on YouTube, and a huge thank you to you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next Sunday with a new YouTube video. See you later!